If your enemy suddenly starts praising you, you're not winning, you're being set up. Listen carefully, because this will save your life. The moment your opposition shifts from fighting you to flattering you, that's not surrender, that's strategy. I've watched millionaires lose everything, leaders lose their influence, and brilliant people lose their minds. All because they couldn't tell the difference between genuine recognition and a calculated setup. Your competitor who spent years trying to destroy you doesn't wake up one morning and decide you're amazing. They wake up and realize that attacking you makes you stronger. So they switch weapons. They trade the knife for a trophy, the criticism for a compliment, and the public opposition for public celebration. And you fall for it because, after all, the fighting, praise feels like victory, when really it's the beginning of your greatest defeat. You know what's more dangerous than an enemy who attacks you? An enemy who applauds you. I'm talking about something that has destroyed more destinies than opposition ever could. Right now, in this very moment, someone somewhere is being set up for failure, and the weapon being used isn't a knife in the back. It's a pat on the shoulder. The most sophisticated form of warfare doesn't announce itself with threats. It walks through your front door dressed as admiration. Think about this carefully. When someone hates you openly, you know where you stand, you build walls, you watch your back, you protect your interests. But when that same person starts celebrating you, praising your work, telling others how brilliant you are, your defenses come down. You start believing maybe you were wrong about them. Maybe they've changed. Maybe they finally see your value. And that's exactly when you're most vulnerable. That's the moment they've been waiting for. This isn't about being paranoid. This is about being wise. There's a story that haunts me, and it should haunt you too. Ancient city, powerful walls, years of war, and the enemy couldn't break through. So they changed tactics. They built a massive wooden horse, left it at the gates as a gift, and sailed away. The people inside the city saw this beautiful creation and thought, we won, they're honoring us, they've given up. They dragged that horse inside their walls, past all their defenses, right into the heart of their city. That night, while they celebrated, soldiers hidden inside that horse opened the gates. The city fell not because the walls were weak, but because they accepted a gift from their enemy. So you're living in a world right now where people have perfected this strategy. They know they can't destroy you from the outside. So they're trying to get inside. And the gift they're bringing isn't made of wood, it's made of words, compliments, recognition, public praise, social media tags, professional recommendations. And you're dragging it right past your defenses because it feels good. It feels like victory. It feels like you finally arrived. But listen to me carefully. Flattery and genuine recognition are not the same thing. When someone truly appreciates you, their praise comes with no strings attached. It doesn't need anything from you. It doesn't arrive at a convenient time for them. It doesn't position you to lower your guard. Real recognition celebrates you and moves on. Strategic praise celebrates you and stays close, watching, waiting, studying where you're vulnerable. Your ego is the enemy's research department. Every time you respond to praise, you reveal something. You show what matters to you. You expose what you're hungry for. You demonstrate what you're willing to compromise to receive more of it. A wise enemy doesn't need to fight you. They just need to figure out what you're starving for and offer it in abundance. Then they watch you destroy yourself trying to maintain that feeling. I watched this happen to a man I'll call Victor. Brilliant businessman, built his company from nothing, respected in his industry. He had competitors who tried everything to bring him down. Public attacks, legal challenges, market manipulation. Nothing worked. Victor was too strong, too focused, too careful. Then one of his biggest competitors did something nobody expected. He started praising Victor publicly, called him a visionary, invited him to speak at conferences, introduced him to investors, celebrated his success in industry publications. Victor was suspicious at first. He remembered the years of opposition, but the praise kept coming, and it felt so good after all those years of fighting. He started accepting the invitations, started sharing his strategies, started revealing his plans for expansion, started trusting this competitor who had become, in his mind, an ally. Within 18 months, that competitor had launched 3 products that directly competed with Victor's upcoming releases, products they knew about because Victor had shared his vision. They had hired away his key employees with information about his management style that Victor had openly discussed. They had positioned themselves in markets Victor was planning to enter because he had announced his intentions at those conferences. Victor didn't lose his business, but he lost his advantage. And it all started with praise he should have questioned. The pattern is always the same. The timing of the praise is suspicious. It comes right when you're about to make a major move, right when you're vulnerable, right when you're hungry for validation, right when you've been criticized by others and this voice sounds like relief. That's not coincidence. That's strategy. Your enemy has been watching, waiting for the perfect moment to offer you something you can't refuse, the feeling that you've won, that you're appreciated, that you're finally getting what you deserve. And here's what makes this so dangerous. You want to believe it. You've worked hard, you've sacrificed, you've pushed through opposition. So when someone finally seems to see your value, every part of you wants to accept it without question. But that desire, that hunger for recognition, that need to be celebrated, that's exactly what makes you vulnerable. The enemy doesn't praise your weaknesses. They praise your strengths because they know that's where your pride lives. They compliment what you're most proud of because that's where you lower your defenses fastest. You need to understand something fundamental about how opposition works in this world. Your enemy would rather have your trust than your fear. Fear makes you careful. Fear makes you alert. Fear keeps you watching. But trust makes you share. Trust makes you vulnerable. Trust gives them access to everything you've protected. And the fastest way to build false trust is through excessive, strategic, perfectly timed praise. They're not complimenting you because they've changed. They're complimenting you because you haven't changed. You're still dangerous to them, and they need a new strategy to neutralize you. Now, let me show you how this actually works in the real world. Because understanding the strategy is your first line of defense. When your opposition realizes they cannot beat you through direct confrontation, they switch to infiltration. This isn't new. This is ancient wisdom that keeps repeating itself generation after generation because people keep falling for the same trap. The battlefield hasn't changed. Only the weapons have been upgraded. Your enemy studies you. They watch how you respond to criticism and they note how you respond to praise. They see which makes you defensive and which makes you open up. And once they realize that attacks only make you stronger, they change their approach entirely. They stop being your visible opponent and start becoming your invisible admirer. This is the long game, and most people never see it coming because they're still preparing for the frontal assault while the real attack is happening through the back door of their ego. Think about it this way. If I want to destroy your focus, I don't need to criticize your work. I just need to praise it excessively and publicly. Now you're thinking about maintaining that image instead of improving the work. If I want to steal your strategy, I don't need to spy on you. I just need to make you feel safe enough to share it with me. If I want to separate you from the people who truly protect you, I don't need to attack them. I just need to elevate you so high in your own mind that you start seeing them as beneath you. The enemy's greatest weapon is making you think they're no longer your enemy. Let me tell you about Nelson. Young man, early 30s, started a software company that was disrupting an entire industry. The established players tried everything to shut him down. Legal threats, price wars, bad press, you name it. Nelson fought through all of it because he was focused and he had good people around him warning him, protecting him, keeping him grounded. His company kept growing. His product kept getting better. He was winning. Then something shifted. The CEO of his biggest competitor A man who had publicly dismissed Nelson's company just months earlier wrote an article praising Nelson's innovation, called him the future of the industry. That article went viral. Suddenly, Nelson was getting invited to industry panels alongside this CEO. They were being photographed together. The CEO was introducing Nelson to venture capitalists, opening doors, making connections. Nelson's team was concerned. They reminded him of the previous attacks, questioned the sudden change. But Nelson shut them down. He said they were being negative, that they couldn't accept his success, that times had changed and even former competitors could become allies. 6 months into this new friendship, the CEO invited Nelson to be a keynote speaker at a major industry conference. Nelson was honored. During the preparation meetings, he shared his entire product roadmap for the next 2 years. He talked about the AI integration he was developing. He revealed the partnership deals he was negotiating. He explained the market segments he was targeting next. He felt safe because this man had become his mentor, his advocate, his friend. The conference was brilliant. Nelson received a standing ovation. His competitor's CEO embraced him on stage. The photo was everywhere. 4 months later, that same CEO's company launched a product that was almost identical to what Nelson had described. They announced partnerships with the same companies Nelson had been negotiating with, companies who suddenly went cold on Nelson's proposals. They entered the exact market segments Nelson had targeted. But they got there first because they knew he was coming. Nelson's investors started questioning his leadership. His team members, the ones who had warned him, started leaving. Some of them went to work for the competitor, recruited by the very CEO who had praised Nelson so publicly. Within a year, Nelson's company lost 60% of its market value, not because his product was inferior, but because he had given his enemy the blueprint to defeat him, wrapped in a relationship that felt like validation. Now, Nelson survived this. He rebuilt, but he rebuilt differently. He learned something that saved his life and career. The source of praise matters more than the praise itself. When someone who has nothing to gain from your success celebrates you, that's genuine. When someone who has everything to lose from your success suddenly starts celebrating you, that's strategy. And you'd better believe they have a plan. This isn't modern psychology. This is ancient wisdom. Solomon, one of the wealthiest and wisest men who ever lived, wrote something that should be engraved in your mind. He who rebukes a man will in the end gain more favor than he who has a flattering tongue. He understood human nature at its core. He knew that the person willing to correct you loves you more than the person constantly praising you. Because correction requires courage and genuine care, flattery just requires an agenda. Throughout history, the greatest falls have come not through warfare, but through deception dressed as honor. Leaders have been compromised, not by threats, but by titles. Kingdoms have collapsed, not from invasion, but from infiltration that started with gifts and compliments. The pattern never changes because human nature never changes. We want to be celebrated, we need to be validated. And that need creates a vulnerability that wise enemies have exploited for thousands of years. Here's what happens inside you when the wrong person praises you. First, pride opens the door. You start believing you're so valuable that even your enemies have to acknowledge it. Second, isolation follows. You distance yourself from the people who question the praise because you'd rather feel celebrated than stay protected. Third, complacency sets in. You stop being vigilant because you think you've already won. These three gates, pride, isolation, complacency, they don't open through criticism, they open through excessive, strategic, perfectly timed praise from people who smile while they plan your downfall. And right now, in your life, someone might be using this exact strategy. That person who suddenly sees your value after years of opposition. That colleague who now calls you brilliant after competing with you. That family member who praises you publicly, but you know their history. They're not praising the real you. They're praising the version of you that serves their purpose. And the moment you stop serving that purpose, the praise will turn to poison. Let me take you inside the modern workplace, where this battle happens every single day. The corporate environment is a perfect breeding ground for strategic praise because everything is competition disguised as collaboration. Promotions are limited, resources are scarce, recognition is currency. And in that environment, your co-workers have learned that destroying you openly gets them fired. But destroying you subtly gets them promoted. There was a woman named Priya, senior analyst at a financial firm, brilliant with data, respected by clients, on track for a director position. She had a rival in another department, a man named Kenneth, who wanted the same role. For 2 years, they competed openly, different approaches, different strategies, clear tension in meetings. Everyone knew they were vying for the same future. Then, 3 months before the promotion decision, Kenneth's behavior changed completely. He started complimenting Priya's presentations. He recommended her for high visibility projects. He praised her analytical skills in front of senior management. He even invited her to collaborate on a major client pitch. Priya was skeptical initially, but the praise felt incredible after years of tension. Her friends told her maybe Kenneth had matured. Maybe he realized collaboration was better than competition. So she accepted his olive branch. They worked together on that client pitch. And Priya shared her proprietary analysis method, the secret system she'd developed that made her so valuable. Kenneth was amazed, grateful, full of admiration for her genius. The pitch went perfectly, the client was impressed. Kenneth made sure everyone knew it was Priya's brilliance that won the deal. 2 weeks later, Kenneth presented a proposal to the executive team for a new analytics framework using Priya's exact method, but positioned as his own innovation. He had documented everything during their collaboration. When Priya confronted him, he acted confused, said they had developed it together, that collaboration meant shared credit. But his documentation told a different story. It showed him as the architect and Priya as the assistant. The executives believed his version because he had the paper trail. He got the promotion. Priya got a reputation for being unable to work in teams and for not understanding how collaboration works. She left the company 6 months later, not because she wasn't brilliant, but because she trusted praise from someone who needed her to fail. This is happening right now in offices everywhere. Someone is being set up through compliments. Someone is sharing their best ideas with people who are taking notes for their own advancement. Someone is being publicly celebrated right before being privately destroyed. And the weapon is always the same. Excessive praise that feels like finally being seen, when really it's being studied. Now take this into the digital world where the battlefield is even more dangerous because everything is permanent and public. Social media has created a new kind of warfare where your enemy doesn't need access to your office or your files. They just need access to your profile, your posts, your patterns. They watch what you respond to. They see what makes you engage. They note what kind of praise gets you talking, sharing, revealing. I've watched influencers and entrepreneurs destroy themselves through strategic praise from competitors. Someone with a competing product starts commenting positively on every post, shares their content, tags them in opportunities. The person being praised feels validated, starts engaging back, starts revealing their upcoming launches, their strategies, their partnerships in casual conversations that feel like friendship. Meanwhile, the person praising them is taking every piece of information and using it to position themselves ahead by the time the launch happens. The market is already saturated because someone else got there first with information they gathered through compliments and conversations that felt safe. The algorithm itself has become a weapon. A viral moment feels like success, but sometimes it's a setup. Your enemy shares your content not to support you, but to expose you to criticism from a wider audience they know will attack you. They praise you publicly where their followers can see it, knowing those followers will tear you apart. Then they sit back and watch while maintaining the appearance of having supported you. Your reputation takes the hit while their hands stay clean. But no way is this more painful than in family dynamics. Blood relationships create a unique vulnerability because you want to believe the best about people who share your history. Two brothers inherit a family business. For For years, the younger one felt overlooked, undervalued. The older one ran everything, made all decisions, got all the credit. Then the father passes. And suddenly the younger brother starts praising the older one publicly, talks about his leadership, his vision, his sacrifice. The older brother is relieved. Finally, the tension is over. Finally, they can build together. So he brings his younger brother into strategic planning, shows him the financial details he'd always kept private, reveals the relationships with key suppliers, the negotiations with investors, the expansion plans. The younger brother is attentive, appreciative, full of admiration. 6 months later, the younger brother approaches those same investors with a proposal for a competing venture, using the exact expansion strategy, targeting the same markets, leveraging relationships with suppliers he now knows personally. The family splits, the business suffers, and it all started with praise that felt like reconciliation but was actually reconnaissance. You have to build a defense system. And it starts with understanding that not all praise deserves your trust. When someone compliments you, your first question shouldn't be, what did I do right? Your first question should be, why are they telling me this now? Timing reveals motive. A compliment that comes right before you make a major decision, right before you need to trust someone, right before you're about to reveal something important, that's not coincidence, that's preparation. Keep your inner circle informed about who's praising you and why. The people who truly love you will help you discern between genuine recognition and strategic manipulation. They'll ask the questions you don't want to ask because it feels good to be celebrated. They'll notice patterns you're too close to see. Document everything. When someone suddenly shifts from opposition to admiration, keep records of conversations, save messages. Note what you shared and when, because if that praise is strategic, you'll need evidence when they use your own words against you. Stay grounded in your mission, not in recognition, when your identity is tied to purpose rather than praise. You can receive compliments without being controlled by them. So how do you move forward in a world where praise can be poison? You develop something more valuable than intelligence. You develop discernment. This is the ability to see beyond what's presented to what's intended. It's the capacity to receive a compliment without letting it reprogram your judgment. It's the strength to say thank you to praise while keeping your plans private. Discernment isn't cynicism. Cynicism rejects everything. Discernment evaluates everything. You build internal validation systems that make external praise less powerful. When you know your worth independent of what anyone says about you. Compliments become information rather than affirmation. You can acknowledge them without needing them. You can appreciate genuine recognition without being addicted to it. And most importantly, you can identify manipulation because you're not hungry enough to ignore the warning signs. The person who needs praise will accept it from anyone. The person who knows their value accepts it only from sources that have proven trustworthy. This requires daily practice. Every morning, before you check your messages, before you see who commented on your posts, before you read your emails, you remind yourself why you're doing what you're doing. Your mission exists independent of applause. Your purpose doesn't require an audience. Your calling was given to you before anyone knew your name, and it remains valid even if everyone stops saying it. This isn't arrogance, this is freedom. Because the moment your motivation shifts from purpose to praise, you've given control of your destiny to whoever is willing to flatter you most convincingly. Watch what happens when you start questioning the timing and source of compliments. Some praise will prove genuine. It comes from people with no agenda, at random moments, with no request attached. That praise you can receive fully, but other praise will reveal itself as strategic. It comes right when someone needs something from you, from people who opposed you yesterday, with subtle requests woven into the admiration. That praise you acknowledge politely and move past quickly. You don't owe anyone access to your plans just because they complimented your progress. Let me tell you what happened to a woman named Janet. She lost everything once, because she trusted strategic praise. Business partner who praised her publicly while stealing from her privately. Investors who called her visionary while planning to replace her. Employees who celebrated her leadership while interviewing with competitors. By the time she realized what was happening, her company was gutted, her reputation damaged, her resources depleted. She could have given up. Many people would have. But Janet did something different. She used that destruction as education. She rebuilt, but this time with new rules. Every person who wanted access to her had to prove themselves over time, not through words, but through consistent action. She created an inner circle of advisors whose job was to question everything, especially praise. When opportunities came that sounded too good, she investigated them thoroughly before engaging. When competitors suddenly wanted to collaborate, she maintained professional distance while watching their patterns. She documented everything, shared selectively, and kept her most valuable strategies completely private until execution. The transformation was remarkable. People still praised Janet because her work was excellent, but she no longer made decisions based on that praise. She evaluated relationships based on evidence over time, not emotion in the moment. She surrounded herself with people who would tell her hard truths rather than easy compliments. And when strategic praise came her way, she recognized it immediately because she'd learned the patterns. Thank you, she'd say. And then she'd change absolutely nothing about her level of trust or transparency with that person. 5 years after her collapse, Janet's new company was worth more than the one she lost. But more importantly, it was protected. She had systems in place that prevented infiltration through flattery. She had relationships built on truth rather than admiration. She had learned to value the person who corrects her privately more than the person who praises her publicly. And that wisdom became her greatest competitive advantage, because while others were being destroyed by strategic praise, she was building something that couldn't be compromised through compliments. You need that same discipline. Start today. Review the people in your life who have praised you recently. Ask yourself honest questions. What do they gain from my success? What do they lose if I succeed? Has their behavior matched their words over time? Do they praise me privately or only publicly? Do their compliments come with requests? Your answers will reveal who genuinely celebrates you and who strategically manipulates you. Practice responding to praise without revealing more of yourself. Someone compliments your strategy, you say thank you without explaining the next phase. Someone admires your success. You acknowledge it without detailing how you achieved it. Someone celebrates your progress. You accept it without outlining where you're going next. Gratitude doesn't require full disclosure. Appreciation doesn't demand transparency. You can be gracious and guarded at the same time. Meet weekly with people who have permission to question you, not critics who tear you down, but truth tellers who protect you. Show them who's been praising you and why. Let them see the patterns you might be too close to notice. Give them authority to warn you when praise seems strategic. These people are worth more than 1,000 admirers because they care about your safety more than your comfort. Your destiny is too valuable to be compromised by flattery. You were created for something specific, something significant, something that requires you to stay focused and protected. The enemy knows this, which is why they're trying to distract you with applause. They're hoping you'll stop building and start performing. They're hoping you'll trade execution for recognition. They're hoping the praise will make you careless enough to reveal what you should protect. But you're wiser now. You understand that the most dangerous enemy is the one who claps for you while planning against you. You recognize that excessive praise from questionable sources is a weapon, not a gift. You know that your worth isn't determined by who celebrates you, but by what you're called to accomplish. So move forward with your eyes open, your circle tight, and your mission clear. Receive genuine recognition with grace. Reject strategic manipulation with wisdom. And never, ever let praise from your enemy make you forget who they really are.